Hello, my extended family. Happy Triduum. It's the end of Lent, and we are at Holy Thursday, which is going to be the beginning Triduum, the sacred 3 days. And here we are at Holy Thursday, which is really commemorating the feast of the Last Supper. If you go to Mass, you'll see that during the Mass, the priest will take time to wash the feet of parishioners, and that is in emulation and modeling of what Christ did at the Last Supper. The word today I want to share with you of so far is the word betrayal. When I think of Holy Thursday, I think of betrayal. And as a child, I remember thinking of 12, and I think of Judas, and I became indignant. Like, how could you? It's Jesus. How could you betray him? And of course, as we get years in life, we get what's called life perspective, and we see the humanity of everything. And then we read the words in the Gospels of where Jesus tells everybody, one of you will betray me. And people like easy to go, well, of course, you're God, he would know. And so I'm going to dismiss that line of thinking that Jesus used his supernatural divine power to mystically crystal ball eyes saying, Judas, you're it. Reality, let's take a different perspective. When you look at the seating of the Last Supper and the way everyone was, they would lay on their left-hand side and eat with their right. And everyone's had their head on the breast or on the chest of the person next to him, just because they all kind of lay around and talk and relax. And so the person on the right traditionally we think is John the Apostle, but more importantly, the person on the left would traditionally be Judas. And the person on the left would be a place of honor. And so what would happen in those days, the person of honor would be to the left of the host, and the host would take a piece of lamb or whatever and rip it off and give it to the host, offer like the first piece. And so if you visualize this scene, Jesus is actually laying his head on the chest of Judas. And so think about it, you have close proximity, he can whisper, they can have intimate conversation. So there's 12 men around this table, and not everyone's, not like we do, not like Italian family, hey, how you doing, hey, what's up? It's not like that. They're having conversations with those close to them. And so John is in the ear of Jesus, Jesus is in the ear of Judas, and they talk to each other here. But really, this is where intimacy of conversation happens. And scholars believe that a lot of times Jesus spent a lot of time bringing Judas to that honored position. Jesus invested a lot of time and energy because he saw something in Judas that, as we find out, Judas did not see in himself. And, we get to those pivotal words where, Jesus is like, I tell you somebody's going to betray me. Whoever I dip this bread, I dip in and give to will betray me. And I look back and like, well, shoot, that's just like an outward sign. Judas, you're the betrayer. Stop it. And really, it's hard to think about when you're there that this was just ordinary behaviors. No one would think that the person who was in a place of honor would betray the host. And so, of course, that's what leads to the scripture questioning, is it I, Lord? Is it I? Who's going to do it? Is it I? And when Jesus says, you have said it, the other apostles don't necessarily think that it was Judas. It could have been whispered, you said it. It's you, Judas. I know what you're going to do. And it got me thinking, like, well, Jesus invested so much. And again, not using supernatural divine God powers to read his mind. A lot of people will say that is a theology to make sense of what they don't understand. But we can't really go there theologically because remember, Jesus is not just only true God, but he's also true man. And we can't say that his divine wisdom superseded his human intellect. So Jesus grew, as the scriptures say, in wisdom and understanding as we do, right? He has to because he was true man. And so not being able to foretell the future, but just maybe reading characters. Jesus knew that Judas was struggling. But yet he loved him. And he poured into Judas, and he gave him love and attention and honor and cared for Judas. And Judas was the treasure. And people knew he stole. If you read the Gospel of John, it says he stole from the treasury. And Jesus kept time and time again, kept giving him more and more chances. Now, why did Judas betray Jesus? Some scholars say that it was Judas was trying to force Jesus' hand to establish his kingdom once and for all. and to cast out the Romans, maybe because he was a passionate nationalist and believed in his country and believed in his people and wanted Israel for the Israelites and to have the kingdom established so there were no more Roman occupations. They could be free to worship as they wanted. Some people said Judas was greedy and he wanted the 30 pieces of silver. He was an opportunist, and not that that's bad, but maybe he knew politically Jesus was getting a lot of dislikes on his Insta and Facebook, and he was going down, and he was being, trashed in the Israel Times, the Palestine Times, whatever it is of those days, and so he wanted to get something, he wanted to salvage something out of it. Well, if Jesus is going down, I might as well get some money out of this and try to live and survive. I don't know what his motive was. I wasn't there. But Scripture does tell us that Satan entered to his heart. Now, at that moment, I don't know. Was Satan already there? But all we do is know that Judas struggled. He struggled a lot. And he betrayed Christ. And it got me thinking of the story. It's a fascinating story where this frog is on a pond, and on the edge of the pond, the scorpion says, "Hey, frog, can you take me to the other side? Can I jump on your back, take me to the other side?" And the frog's like, "Heck no, you're a scorpion. You're going to sting me." The scorpion's like, no, I wouldn't do that. I need to get to the other side. If I stung you, you're going to drown. You're going to go. So the frog's like, what the heck? And so he lets the scorpion get on his back, and they go across the pond. And as they get to the edge, the scorpion's ready to hop off, and bam! He poisons the frog. And the frog's like, "I thought you said you were going to do that. Why did you do that?" And the scorpion says, "Hey, I'm a scorpion." Sometimes we pour into people. Sometimes we care about people. Sometimes we give as much love, and they just don't change. They don't change who they are. And they still sting, and they still hurt, and they still do us wrong. And I wonder how many little betrayals Judas had of Jesus before we got to that point in the Last Supper. The final betrayal. We just know the final one. But how many times did he lie about Jesus to cover his own butt? How many times did he kind of betray Jesus or have conversations behind Jesus' back? We don't know. We just know in the Scriptures that this one act was like the definitive revelation of Judas's character. And so for many times, as a child, I would put myself in the other apostles' shoes or even Jesus' shoe. And sometimes, though, this Lent and Trib gets me thinking is, when do I betray Jesus? But when do I betray others? When do I be the scorpion? And my ugly nature takes over. And I think that's the purpose of Lent, is to get in touch with our ugly nature, to get in touch with the things that are distracting us from following Christ in our life, from stopping us from becoming the best person that we are created to be by God, and putting those things aside. Because I think Judas is a great example of what it's like to not have a Lent. What's it like to not go inside and look at the stuff that stops us from fully opening our hearts and our minds to receiving God's love and mercy? And you're going to fast forward in a day or two, or actually in a day, you're going to hear the story of Peter. And Peter also betrays Jesus in a different way. He denies him. And so he betrays his friendship. I'm not friends with that guy. Are you crazy? I'm not friends with him. Yes, he's saving his own skin. He's saving his own life. And so, I'm sorry. I just realized that my shaving cut's bleeding, but I'm going to leave this in the cut. I'm going to leave this in unfiltered today. This is the way it is. It's raw. And so Peter does it, but what happens is Peter kind of goes through a Lent. At the end, you're going to see that he weeps, and he realizes he's wrong, and he realizes that's the ugliness inside him coming out. He doesn't want to be that man. And later on, you're going to read the end of the Gospel of John where Jesus says, "Peter, do you love me?" And Jesus asks him 3 times, and Peter says, "I love you." And he says, "Feed my sheep." And Peter changes his life and goes on to become, the first pope or a great martyr. And that's really what this is about for us. We have the ugliness inside us. We have the sin. We have the things that hurt our brothers and sisters. We have the selfishness and the sin and the pride and the lust and the greed and the whatever it is. We have all that, right? And Lent is that time to move through it. And this whole thing about Easter is rejoicing that stuff does not have to consume us. We are not owned by those things, and we're not defined by those things. But Judas, sadly, was defined by those things because he couldn't see. He couldn't really see past his own ugliness, his own inadequacies, his own self-doubts and fears, and his own, fallen humanity. He couldn't see that past that and own it. He couldn't own his crap. Whereas Peter did. On the third day, Peter went out and he wept. He wept. Judas, he just took the change and threw it back. He goes, I screwed up, and in an act of denial, just threw the money back at the guys. I want to undo it. I want to undo it. I don't like the results. I want to undo it. But he didn't take ownership. He was the little kid who was sorry that he got in trouble, not sorry that he did something wrong. Whereas Peter was sorry that he did something wrong. So as we enter into Holy Thursday, and even all the way to Easter, I'll leave you with a sense of betrayal. Think about betrayal in your life. We all have people who have betrayed us. If you don't, probably haven't lived long enough or met enough people. Well, it's all right. So we've all been betrayed by those we've loved in various forms. And some just don't change. And on the same token, we've betrayed others that we've loved too. And when we look at our relationship with Christ, we have to look at the times where we did betray Jesus. Yep, I know, it's still there. And we've got to look past that and not lose hope, not go into a place of despair like Judas did, where it said he hung himself and went to a place of his own. But we've got to look to the hope of forgiveness and mercy, because that's really what's going to happen on Good Friday. The ultimate act of mercy and the ultimate act of love, which was clothed in tragedy, death, and sense of hopelessness. So, my friends, thank you for this Holy Thursday. I pray that you all have a fantastic beginning to Triduum. God bless you guys, and if I don't see you, have a happy Easter. I'm going to actually work on putting something in for tomorrow, but we'll see how it goes. I'm not going to guarantee it, but I just want you to just take a moment and just really reflect on this Holy Thursday and just have a blessed sacred day. God bless you all. Take care.